Just with Matt Rosa, how concerning is his concussion issues and why is it dragging on so long for him in his recovery?
Well, he's had a few over his career. And the one he got against North Melbourne, he had a bit of that lasted for a while, so he missed the next week. And he started running, and he just felt a bit, I suppose, a bit dizzy, a little bit different. So we just took the precaution phase with him. So I think it's more that he's had a few over his career, but he's fine. He's trained all week, and he trained today, so he'll be okay to play this week.
Is he worried about the amount of concussions?
I haven't spoken to him directly about that. I would imagine every player would, I think, in today's climate, because it's obviously been spoken about more often and past players are coming out. So, but he seems in a good place at the moment. So I think it's more about getting the protocols right to start with. So obviously don't play when you're feeling a little bit off, if that's the right phrase. Matt's a bit old school as well, even with his injuries. He wants to get out there. So probably maybe in the past he might have played when he probably shouldn't have played.
You say a few concussions. How many are we talking?
I've got half a dozen or so over his career.
So is he passed? Is he in?
Yeah, he's passed. Yeah, he's passed. He trained today. The final test is how he pulls up tomorrow. Yeah. But I just spoke to him on the way over. He said what's happened the last week or two is when he's got his heart rate up, he started to feel a little bit dizzy, but he didn't today at all. So he's really confident he'll be right.
So while we're doing team stuff, then what about everyone else? Did Gary get through? Is Bose playing?
Gary got through. So Gary and Matt Rose are at this stage the only two changes. But we've got about 9 coming back through the seconds. So, 9 overall, that includes those two. So Bose, Lonigan, Ainsworth, Trent will get another week, Hallahan, Grant, Thompson's another one. Okay, Archie will be right next week. So we're just starting to get the troops back. But most of those guys mentioned coming back need the run in the twos. So.
Benny Ainsworth, was he in there?
Yes, Ainsworth was in that. So he'll play at least this week and next week in the twos. No, it's been a long one for him, for the cork, and affected his muscle as well. And actually calcified a little bit. So, but he trained well all week, and he'll play this week and next week in the NEAFL.
What did you learn from your review?
It was mainly player driven, which is so they spoke. It's more about their mindset at the particular time that it happens, and it's happened consistently, irregularly, if that's the right phrase. It doesn't happen every week, but like the Geelong game, we're challenged, we fought back okay, but there's been periods every 5 or 6 weeks. It probably happened the pre-season and the last NAB game as well, or whatever, the JLT game. So there is a bit of a pattern there. So we had a good discussion about it. The players spoke about areas that they need to improve. We spoke about as a coaching group what we can do to help and assist. There's some other programs we've got in place which we're doing consistently, which includes leadership. So it's just an ongoing thing. At times when things get a bit rocky, we just need to put some things in place. So we've spoken about it internally, and we've trained that this week, which we train most weeks, and we'll just continue with the education.
Toog said the other day it might be something simple like not adhering to a structure or something. Is it simple?
No, I think that's too simplistic. I think it's too simplistic. It's I think it's obviously a state of mind with a youngish group, and we need some leaders to be able to stand up in those situations, but also those middle tier players and have some real direction about what they need to be able to do in that situation.
Who are the competitors in your side? Who are the ones who stand up when the momentum swings?
Well, Swallow, normally. Yeah. There wasn't really anyone last week. So normally Lynch is a competitor, you would say. Yeah. Stephen May, Harbs. I think in those situations it's generally driven by the leaders. You can't really blame kids. If you get a kid like an Ainsworth who's going to do that consistently well, you've got a beauty, and I think there are those players in the competition. But but it's generally your leaders, led by them, and then your next group of tier players who have been 5 or 6 years, they're the ones who've got to stand up and give direction. So it's not only competitors, it's about giving direction and about challenging your teammates to be able to do things in certain situations.
So is it a problem for you that your two leaders are at either end of the ground?
No, not really. I mean, obviously when we played Port Gary's in there, so he didn't play last week. Michael Barlow, there is some experience. So I don't think that's an issue, but leadership to me is just not 1 or 2 players. It needs to be across the board. Now we need to spread our base a bit wider, obviously.
After the game, sorry, you seemed sort of disillusioned a little bit in some of your comments, with a couple more days to think about
Disillusioned? No, not disillusioned. It was more just being introspective, probably just thinking internally. And a lot of times you get into a press conference, like I said, it's a bit of theatre. You sort of put on a face, but it was me probably thinking more about the game and what's happened and thinking it through rather than articulating, rather than being in a particular phase that I should be able to show myself. So, no, I don't think disillusion's the right phrase. It's trying to work out why it happened, more of that.
And you said that sometimes you're not sure sometimes whether that message is getting through. Have you talked to players or anyone?
Yeah, I think Duke said that, obviously there's a headline there. Most of the time it does. I mean, in those situations, obviously, we need some, probably the better way of putting it is that we need some more work to do. We're a young team, young leadership group, and we need to improve in those areas where the players, we tend to wait till a break. Well, they need to be able to address that. There's only so much you can do off the field, and certainly as a coaches, we need to take some responsibility as well about how we get that message across.
How do you prepare for West Coast, whose home form is vastly different to their away form, but you can't assume that's going to happen? And do you think it's a similar mentality that sides have when they play you, because they don't know which one's going to turn up?
Yeah, and then we tend to play better at home. We tend to be like they've been on the road as well. So,
yeah.
And certainly, the way we're trained this week, I think there's a bit of confidence, obviously returning to our home deck. But I think every team's going to give you the same answer. You actually prepare for the best team that's going to come.
Yeah.
So, they were pretty good for most of the part last week. GWS are a really good side, even though they've got some players out. They've got a lot of depth and they've got a real hard edge to them. So, now the West Coast have got some talent, so they're obviously going to address some things that they need to address. But I think we've got to prepare what they will bring at their best, but certainly more worry about us, the way we play, the way we go about it, and have that consistent effort before quarters.
Rocket, do you still think that the boys could make the 8? I know at the start of the season we didn't want to talk about finals and stuff, but
and it's probably the same situation. I don't want to talk about it either. I think mathematically it's a very even season, as everyone says. You just need to get on a bit of a roll, and anything can happen. Anyone can win particular game. So, yes, mathematically, but we're not even concerned. We're worried really about this week, and then once this week finishes, we're going to worry about next week, and that's what we've got to do: get that consistency. The results will look after itself. Players, they're. Most of the time, they can't fault their attitude. So they've been good this week. We just need to have a good effort this week and I suppose a good performance and give us confidence going forward.
Why do you think it's taking so long to get that message through? Like, this is your 3rd year with the club.
It's not the message you didn't listen to me before.
You're trying to teach them, and everyone needs to be leaders all the time.
So with a young group, it takes a while to get the leadership, and we've had some experienced players out, and that obviously hurts the team. So. Just working with their mindset and how they cope with certain situations. So there's not only a coaching group, but we've got a leadership program, and we've got some other programs in place, and what we've got to do is just continue on with those and keep working with.
Pressure is mounting for you guys to turn it around, because people, without realising, sort of rate you against giants who are... Yeah,
but I don't know why. I know because of the situation, but you have a look at their age and experience. They've got about 50 to 80 games more per player and their age, so they're a completely different unit to us. So I don't know why. I know why they do, but I'd be rating us against teams that did make the 8 last year, and at the moment we're behind where we should be.
Is it an unfair comparison, the one with GWS?
On the present list it is, yeah.
Robert, what about the situation with Stephen May? For the 2nd year in a row, you reached the halfway mark of the year and a pretty important player is non-committal. Do you feel like they want to see success before they...
Well,
How do you feel about it?
well, I know a lot of dialogue that's going on internally, so which I don't want to say publicly. So from our point of view, we're confident it'll work out. But I think in those situations, it's best to talk to Scott and Marcus. They're actually dealing with the management. But from our point of view, we're okay with it.
How much do you think not having Kennedy will change things this weekend?
Hopefully a lot. Look, he's a good player. You know, the fact we didn't have Gary last week, he was a good player, and we felt we could win. So I don't think one player's going to make any particular team. Obviously, plus having a good player out for us.
Would you like to see a bit more from Tom Lynch? Do you think they're trying to sort of double team him and he's being a bit quiet, or are you happy with what you're getting?
He was down in China. I thought last week he was pretty competitive. He was, you know, he's a bit unlucky at certain stages, certain pages of the game. But I thought he was one player that competed most of the time.